St-Pierre is a mentor of mine, and that's something I always saw him work in camps. In camps, he would bring in the best of the best of what can represent his opponents, and he'd start from the worst case scenario, and then he'd build himself out. And by the end of training camp, he'd be working on complete prevention. So we'd start from like completely stuck in a position to let's not get there whatsoever. Because at this level at the UFC, everyone is so good. Everyone is a specialist, and you have to expect that. Let's say the guy's a back taker or the guy's got an amazing right hand, that he's gonna land it or get you in that sticky situation at least one time in the fight. You know, at least one time, because he's also a superstar. He's also really, really good, just as good as you are at what you do. So you have to always plan for the worst, but hope for the best.
And one thing I always loved about George was how he went to all of these different places. He was very nomadic. But of course, TriStar was his home base. But he'd go with Crewfield Nurse. He would go with Freddie Roach. For jiu-jitsu, he went with Donaher. Like you know, he used to always just seek out the places where he could find the best people in certain dialects and test himself in that way. I just always admired that.
Yeah, it's incredible. And he was the fighter that I've seen spend the most money on training camp. And at the time, he wasn't making as much money. Like with his first few title fights, they weren't big, huge paydays, right? The more he won, the more he defended his belt, the more money he made. But from the very beginning, he spent a lot of money. And he saw it as a reinvestment in himself, and that the better he got, the better he can do and the more money he would make. So he never thought about nickel and diming himself. He always like, okay, how can I get better? What would it cost? And when he would bring these guys in, he'd put them up at hotels. He'd give them per diem, and he treated them so well that they were all so happy to give him a lot. You know, you don't want to be a fighter who, when you do bring in a guy, you don't take care of them. You know, you don't pay for their meals. You don't pay for their hotel. Like, you gotta make sure that you take care of these guys properly, so that they give you everything and they don't hold anything back, and they don't resent you for spending the time, because they can be spending the time working on themselves. You know what I mean? They're spending time away from their families. So that's something that I learned from George, that how he took care of his friends that came out from United States or from wherever around the world to help him. I use that myself, and I feel like that's something a lot of these new fighters need to learn and make sure that they spend their money on themselves.
Yeah, in fact, Conor McGregor, when I spoke to him before his Cowboy Cerrone fight, said that one thing that really impacted him was he saw how much money LeBron James spent of his salary on training and on preparation, and that was something that he really wanted to subscribe to, was really investing in himself and making sure that he was a well-oiled machine going into some of these fights. Of course, we're not getting a chance to see him tomorrow night, but that was something that always stood out to me, that he was thinking of things in that way.
Yeah, because we are the business. You know what I mean? The MMA fighter is a business in itself, right?